So I actually have a bit of an agenda that I wanted to kind of start out with here, just because I know these things are going to come up at some point on our conversation today. So pardon me while I jump into this. So first, I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have seen the Zeke Emanuel article stating that basically we're all pretty much fucked until at least the end of 2021. And that our industry is gone until that time. And so just to talk about that for a moment, because I actually did a little bit of research and I had a couple of friends who are in the know do a bit of research as well. And first of all, Zeke Emanuel is part of a pretty special family. Two brothers, there's three brothers. So Zeke is a very good doctor and a professor. His brother Ram was, of course, the mayor of Chicago and the buddy of Obama, and his brother Ari is like a huge bigwig agent at WME. And so you would think the guy's incredibly credible, but apparently they don't get along, these three brothers. And so there's some issues there. And so one was sort of a jab at the brother. And then secondly, in my opinion only, and I'm no expert at anything really, but in my opinion, this is a bit of the tail wagging the dog. And so I'm not saying we shouldn't be listening to great doctors, because of course we should, but we should also be listening to great financiers or financial experts. And I think those combinations have to happen, at the same time. In other words, I don't think we should put all of our eggs in one side or all of our eggs in the other side. You have to kind of have both people at the table and then a common sense person in the middle that is communicating with both of those sides. So, bottom line is a doctor can't tell us when it's the right time for our industry to get back to work, because he's not looking at the fact that I think we would all agree that if we actually don't have shows of any kind of public gatherings or concert events or corporate meetings or any of the things that we're involved in, if we have none of those until the end of 2021, I don't know of a single company in our industry that will continue to exist. None. PRG, Christie, none. I don't care how big, I don't care how small. Nobody, if you have 18-month reserves in your company, you're not investing properly in your company today. I mean, if you have 3-month reserves, that's incredible. That, God bless you. You're very disciplined and you're an amazing company. But 18-month reserves, nobody has. So that's number one thing that I wanted to mention. And we can discuss all these things. So I'm not trying to be a dictator and take over this call. The next thing is that I keep hearing from people, and I've had so many conversations, and I appreciate all of you, think that I'm a good person to bounce ideas off of or whatever. That's great. So I've had a lot of conversations, and I'm willing to help anybody who wants to ask if I can help. Maybe sometimes I can't, but one of the common themes is, when are we going to get back to normal? And I think that is now a false statement. So I don't think there is a back to normal anymore. I think the normal that you think we're going to get back to probably ceases to exist. So you need to reinvent yourself. You need to reinvent your business, just like, so many other industries. And somebody I heard, I don't remember, I think it was a podcast I listened to, talked about being blockbustered. And so you want your company not to be blockbustered, which means that Netflix doesn't come in and eat your lunch, or COVID doesn't come in and eat your lunch. You need to make yourself or your business strong enough to survive this, whatever this is, right? And so that means one of the things, one of the exercises that I go through on a daily basis is, if I was to create my company today, what would it look like? And I know that sounds crazy, and most of you will say, well, first of all, I wouldn't create it in the entertainment business because, we don't have much of an industry. But let's say you had to stay in this industry. What would your business look like today? Based on the situation that we're in right now, how would you create that company? And that's a great thought and a great exercise to go through. And I go through it, like I said, almost daily. If I'm creating my company today, what should it look like? And so, some of the things like PPE, I talk to a lot of people who are creating protection equipment. And that's an amazing thing, but that's very short term. Let's face it, none of us are going to be in the hospital bed business in the future. We're probably not going to be in the plastic shield business or the mask business in the future. We're going to be back into the entertainment business. So these are all things that are just allowing us to bring in cash. It's probably better than selling drugs or selling our children or our furniture or whatever else, right? Let's do this PPE thing to keep some money coming in, and also to help people. I mean, there's certainly that aspect of it that we are helping, and that companies like Upstaging and even PRG now are doing it. I talked to Jason earlier. He's got a PPE thing going on. So that's amazing, but that's not our future. That's just our present to keep food on the table for right now. And so, I mean, continue to reinvent ourselves. I think that's what's really important that we have to do. And in order to do that, we got to find a way to stay positive. And I know I'm sounding a little bit like, a salesman or whatever when I say this stuff, but, sitting in the corner, sucking your thumb and waiting to die is not a solution right now. And I know that there's days when I feel like doing that, but we can't do that. We can't just sit back and complain about all the things that are not happening or what's broken or what's going on with this or that. We gotta force change, and we gotta force good, positive things to happen. And so, that's really like, and so with that, I've seen a few companies that I do want to call out, and I think some of these are here. ACT Lighting continues to do amazing things, I think. And so I know there are people probably even on this call who work for ACT who are going, you sure about that? But ACT, I think, are doing some incredible things. Elation are doing some incredible things. Martin, one of the things that I saw Martin do this week, and I don't know if I'm blowing a secret wide open or something, but Martin are paying people in our industry, designers and many of you, they're paying you to come on and do teaching webinars or live streams or whatever they're calling them. That's amazing, because you're basically helping take care of people in the industry who don't have work right now. You're giving them work, but you're also giving people access to these brilliant minds that are otherwise probably sitting at home, sucking their thumb in the corner, right? So, the other thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise, is I was invited, thank you very much, Ray Ziegler, but I was invited onto a call that Ray set up a few days ago. And I believe it was a Live Nation guy who said, guys, because everyone was kind of a little bummed out and stuff. And I understand that. Trust me, I'm not saying anybody's wrong for being pissed off or sad or whatever it is. But the Live Nation guy said, guys, in October, early October, I think it was, there's one night where there are 4 arena-sized shows going on the same night in this area, in this general vicinity. You guys aren't going to have enough gear. What are you doing about that right now? When are you going to start stocking up on gear? When are manufacturers going to start preparing to sell you more gear? Because, if you wait until October, it's going to be too late, and that's going to come in from out of state. It's going to come from someone else. And so whether that's October, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying for sure 100% there's going to be shows in October, but as of right now, in the New Orleans area or Louisiana area, there's 4 arena shows in one night. And so that's pretty cool, So anyways,
Marcel, and based on that, because I'd like to keep touching on this point, that because we're going to have a spike in influx of supply demand issues, I really, really hope that everybody takes this opportunity to reevaluate what our services are really worth, and not just do a cash grab because we are all hurting for cash flow. There'll be some that do it, but I really hope that we have an opportunity that the group as a collective takes this opportunity to really hold firm at what the services are really valued at.
I agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And
Well,
Marcel,
the other thing that I've been thinking about too is, a lot of the bigger size companies, if you're looking for gear, it's a good time to reach out to the smaller guys that can come and reinforce you. Those little trickle downs can be, marginal for you, but for, a shop that's going 6 months without any type of work, cross rental and stuff like that could be, just a little bit of extra help for them. And I know that's a hard thing to do because it's like, okay, well, I got to find where's the mate to my rig and who's got it. But it's another thing that the bigger boys can do down to the middles, and the middles can do down. It's a
Corey,
chain.
that's an absolute brilliant scenario, because let's make your competitors your resources instead of the competition that's going to push the value down.
I don't have competitors in this industry. I got family. And I know that sounds like a bunch of BS, but you know what? When we're all at Circle Bar, everybody's drinking and everybody's family. And we fight like family.
True that.
Well, there's another example that came from Ray's call the other day. And Ray, I'm sorry if I'm bringing this up wrongfully or whatever. I'm certainly not slamming anyone, but I believe it was a staging company who had a bunch of laborers that they were basically just allowing to go collect unemployment. And I said, well, have you applied for the PPE funding? And he said, yes, I have. And I said, do you plan to bring these people back? And he said, no, they'll be on unemployment. Why would they come back to me if I'm paying them, for example, $15 an hour as laborers, and they can make $18 an hour or whatever it is on unemployment? And I said, but have you thought, and he said, and I have nothing to do. There's only so many times you can sweep the shop. But I said, have you thought, if they really are $15 an hour laborers that are probably better trained than most laborers who sweep shops and stuff, isn't there somewhere, hospitals somewhere, who needs labor right now who would pay $25 an hour? And he goes, yeah, probably. And I said, so how about you keep your guys employed, you take the PPE money and you go and book them out, even if you're only getting $16 an hour. You're sort of double dipping because the government's paying their $15 an hour and you're getting paid 18 or 17 or 12 or whatever it is. You're making a profit at least. And he kind of went, yeah, I didn't think of that. So, and then lastly, before I'm done beating up on you, Ray, and it's not you, but it's just, there were some things flying at me on that call that I was just thinking, well, we can do better than this. And the other one was, there was some staging done at a hospital locally to set up, hospital beds or whatever, or I'm sorry, it was a convention center, I think. And someone was complaining that they brought out of state people in. And while that's terrible on the surface, the problem is you got to keep in touch with your local politicians and your local important people, because if you're not, someone else is. And so I'm guessing they didn't go out of state because you were too expensive or any of those things. Logistically, it was probably more expensive to bring stuff in, right? So anyways, yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Who is that?
This is Randy Wade.
Oh, hey, Randy.
Hey, Marcel. Andrew Cuomo made a very simple and obvious statement the other day and said, any company that is depending on one single revenue stream for their total cash intake is not doing it right. He said, you must have more than one source. And in our particular industry, most of the people are focused on entertainment, which is basically at a dead standstill right now. So I think it's real important that people think of their other sources of revenue streams, much like you mentioned earlier about labor.
Yeah.
But there's other areas that are in need of production that have nothing to do with entertainment. And second thing, nothing's going anywhere until our medical industry develops a vaccine. Until we have that vaccine, we're going to be masked up and gloved up and 6 feet apart. So the end of 2021, probably, if it takes that long for a vaccine to be developed.
Well,
Ray,
So
you're talking about that Zeke Emanuel article that many of us have seen now, maybe to a certain degree. Zeke Emanuel, University of Pennsylvania health expert who's contracted, as I understand, by the New York Times. And that person essentially said that the exact same thing. You know, our own governor, I love our governor, Pritzker, he's awesome in Chicago here in Illinois, but he said on Friday, he said something to the effect of, until we have a vaccine, he can't see gatherings happening. And one of the things, Marcel and I were literally talking on the phone an hour ago about this, and some of you may have heard about Essence Festival canceling. Originally, it was in July, you know, and then it moved to September, and then they canceled it today. And they cited the following. I actually had it open right here. It said, while we initially hoped that a reschedule from our July dates to a later in the fall would be feasible, current information and projections by public health officials and agencies have made it increasingly clear that any large-scale event this year could potentially and unnecessarily put attendees and surrounding communities at risk. So what would have been typically a very difficult decision for us was not, because people come first. And I guess my concern with that statement is that if enough things like the Zeke Emanuel article are read as gospel, and this is read as gospel, I actually found another Essence Festival article today that mentioned the Zeke Emanuel quote. I mean, okay, September's 5 months away. For all intents and purposes, that's half a fucking year away. That's a long time away, like a long time away. And if we're making decisions now, I mean, hell, it snowed today in Chicago. You know, I mean, we're not even in summer yet. If we're making decisions about the fall, you know, public health officials don't even have complete information to make these decisions now. So we're making these kind of reactive decisions about things that are a half fucking year away. And now we're kind of dealing with it. My concern is if this is taken as gospel, and if monkey see, monkey do, we look at, okay, Essence Festival canceled because they want to protect people. Well, now you're a promoter and you're going to put on a festival in August or September, and you're going to go, oh man, well, they said they're doing it to save people's lives. If I put on a festival, am I being irresponsible? If that happens, potential for no revenue in 2020 is actually true for us.
Jason, now they've canceled all the shows in New Orleans for 2020, just so you know. They've canceled everything for the rest of the year here.
Keep in mind the promoters are at the mercy of the insurance companies.
Correct.
Because the insurance companies are calling the shots. Let me assure you that.
Yeah, we just got the call on Monday about which was going to be our canary that we've talked about earlier. Comic-Con got slammed, where we had quite a number of studio promotions, gigs, you know, experiences. They all got zoomed on Monday, unfortunately.
So zoomed and slammed means canceled?
Yes, at the same time.
Okay, cut. They got cut. Yeah, so, you know, the bottom line is on all of this, guys, is the easy answer is no. And at some point, I think someone somewhere is going to come around with a more difficult answer, which is yes, but with some changes. And we're going to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to happen. You know, again, I started this call by saying, if we don't have any shows until the end of 2021, guys, it's been really nice knowing all of you and ladies, but
you're all familiar with Chapter 11 code really fast. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're all going to be looking for other industries and other things to do. And guess what? Those other industries aren't too good right now either. So we cannot sit still for another 18 months.
No way.
The hotel industry, the casino industry, the airline industry, all of those cannot sit still for another 18 months. It's not going to happen.
I'm driving my wife crazy because in conversations with people all day long, I keep saying these words: Vegas and Disney cannot be closed for 6 months. And I use those as a windfall, as an example, right? Because Vegas and Disney are two massive entertainment consortiums. I mean, Vegas is more of a consortium, Disney's more of an organization. But if they're shuttered for 6 months, the billions and billions of dollars of losses are going to mount. And I don't necessarily know that we can recover from that. And I use those because everything else kind of trickles down below that, right? So it can't happen, right?
We'll see if it happens, but Cirque resident shows here in Vegas, Cirque shows had been pre-selling tickets for May 11th was their hopeful relaunch date, pending that they're allowed to. Hopefully that happens. I also heard today from somebody that MGM is reaching out to vendors alongside Cirque to see, if they're still able to service things. So, they're obviously, their entire revenue stream is based on whether or not they can put people in seats. So they want to get back to that as soon as humanly possible. But things like that, I think you're exactly right, Jason, are going to be the driving force to this, that sort of open up some of the doors and show people that it might be okay.
100%.
Yeah, we need something to happen and not have it be totally fucked one time.
Yeah. So,
15 days after and people are okay.
I think anyone who's heard my podcast knows that my son is a racing driver, and we race in a series called Formula 4. And so the first race was canceled. It was supposed to be last weekend, April 8th, I think it started. And the next race is in Austin, Texas, in June, I think June 6th or 7th or something. And I got an email today from the SCCA, the racing body that governs over the Formula 4 series, saying that as of right now, unless officials in government or something cancel it, that race is a go. And that's after much thought, many meetings, loads and loads of.
That's good news. That's absolutely good news.
We'll see. Uh-oh.
Isn't the real test when WWE shows back up in Florida, since they're now essential?
Yeah, that one blows my mind.
I don't know how they
stay out of
actually
Florida,
got that
okay?
passed.
Don't take my money.
to actually be one show that opened. I mean, for the people who are participants in it, first off, that's way closer than basketball and way closer than anything else as far as that.
But did anybody read the article today about sports reopening, and we with the first one likely being UFC in May, and then but I mean NFL is talking about absolutely running. The NBA are having all kinds of meetings right now running fanless, but most of those companies or those leagues' revenue is driven by television, not by seats. Smaller leagues are going to struggle because they make their money from bums in the seats, right? But
the MLB right now is trying to put together a plan to do a fanless season, and we'll see how that goes.
I think it's going to happen. I mean, when you talk
Play
about
ball.
an organization the size of the NFL, with the amount of television revenue on the table, there's no way they're not going to run that season. I mean, that is absolutely going to happen. So, somebody's going to do I was just saying this to Jason earlier, somebody's going to come up with a creative way to run concerts where, there's a people-less concert with full lighting, full production, and then you have LED screens put out into communities where that live show is being broadcast into communities on LED screens where there's 50 people in each location or something. I have no idea, but something.
The element of engaging people, I think, is the important thing. Because sports engages people in a way. It's now we don't know what the outcome's going to be of this particular game, and there's a draw to that. Concerts, we've been sitting inside looking at Netflix for the past. It feels like 300 years, but however the hell long it's been, we've been sitting watching, Tiger King and things. And we've seen concerts on Netflix. There has to be some way to engage people in order to monetize broadcast concerts if they're going to be broadcast live. And that's something for people, I think, smarter than me to figure out. But, we'll be there to be part of it, right, Marcel? I mean, that's the plan. But hopefully.
So I see real quick, just don't ask some of the LA people. I see that Brian Klunder's on there and Jeff Ravitz. Has there been any talk in the last week about any shooting at all and booting back up, or is it completely dead?
Because of the California shutdown, there hasn't been talk like for anything remotely close. But there is talk about, hey, we're going to do like audience-less shows. So I mean, the broadcast world, I think, is probably in a better state of being able to creep its way back, obviously, but nothing concrete at all.
I know.
These I've had have been like nothing new to report this week. Check in next week.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
My wife works on Broadway, and of course, just like the rest of us, they're all still shut. And she works for IA 798, and they're still trying to plan how do we stagger and reopen this. Because at least you do what the airlines are doing, you board certain seats at the same time, you only buy in clumps and you leave holes. I mean, just like our industry, as you guys just said, TV, I think, is the most likely to get back sooner because you can get away with it without a massive crew or a massive infrastructure. But just like Jason Roberski said earlier, Broadway can't stay closed for another year and a half. You know
Yeah,
what I
but
mean?
Jason, let me ask you something.
That's too many
Yeah.
people.
No, Jason Bullock.
Yes,
Let
sir.
me ask you something. Do you think that Broadway, and this is just a stupid question, I don't know anything. Do you think Broadway could operate without people in the seats in the actual theater, but where you could buy a ticket for 75, 60% off of whatever the normal ticket price is and watch it on closed circuit television from your seat at home?
Well, see, that exact conversation has come up as one of the potential ways to repair this. You know, where you would do a direct thing like this Zoom meeting, and you would go and watch it, but you know they would do multi cameras that were all there, or you know you would buy basically into the recording, be able to pick through your cameras and that kind of own shit. But of course, you know, if you look at it, a lot of the landlords being good about the rent, you know, for the Broadway theaters, a lot of people would be willing to go back to work, just like post 9/11, where people went back to work at a reduced rate because they're like, listen, the seats aren't full, but we need to do shows. People need money. You know, people are hurting for money anywhere. And right now, actors and shit, if you tell them, you know, I'm sure if you worked with the actors equity and all that kind of shit, they'd be willing to do, you know, 50% seats if that's what we have to do. But like most of us, just get the fuck shit going again.
Yeah.
Can I continue on that? Can I pick on
Everyone but the
Jason,
AFM. Everyone but the AFM who scuttled the Broadway broadcast they were trying to. So it's going to be the musicians that are going to be the problem.
Can I pick on Jason Fassel real quick? He shared something about one of the regional theaters going and wanting to sell tickets for shows without production. Can you elaborate on that?
There's been a bunch of theaters here in Wisconsin who filmed their last show prior to, and then have been selling their shows. There had been a lot of negotiations with both USA and Equity to make that happen. The problem, there was, obviously, you guys all saw any of the Red Bull theater shit where Equity came in and shut down a reading. There's the problem in that Equity is different from SAG, and Equity actors are not SAG actors. And who has the who has the right to what? And then it also comes down to when these theater companies rent the script, they're specifically not allowed to record it. So they've been having to get the IP to broadcast it. No playwright wants this community theater's version of that show to actually be the definitive recorded version.
Yeah, to be their YouTube video, you know, that ends up online somehow magically and be the representation of the art that they made. You know, and again, that's the same shit my wife and the board of trustees of IATSE 798, these are the headaches they've been dealing with of what do we do? Like, how do we make SAG happy? How do we make, you know, all of the acting companies happy, the playwrights happy, but how do we still get people back in the seats? Because I think a lot of us can agree across the board, until we can get 10,000 people's asses in a seat in a venue, we're, as you know, as Jason said earlier, we're shut.
Well,
you know,
let's look at this
safe.
for a minute. Let's look at that for a minute. Human nature, live shows. How many people do you actually think will actually buy a ticket to a show that is not live? Think about it.
I think a lot.
You're going to go home and watch this live show on a television screen.
I think it's going to be a lot less.
Yeah, it'll be.
I mean, they've been doing pay-per-view for a million years.
But if the price is right, if you have it cost effective enough that people don't care if they go up and miss part of the show because they went and went to the fridge to get a beer or walked to pee or whatever it is, you know, it's not the magic of going to a show live, absolutely. But if the price is commensurate, you could sell more tickets theoretically.
Well, and I'm one of these people who, when it comes to sporting events, I mean, like, you know, if somebody gave me tickets to a UFC event or gave me the pay-per-view, I'd stay home and watch the pay-per-view every single time, because it's more comfortable, it's easier, you can see better.
There's no COVID-19.
There's no COVID-19. I mean, you know, that's one aspect of it. But, you know, like, for example, and, you know, I'm going to make a confession here, guys. I don't like live theater. And I've sold to Broadway for years and years and years, but I don't like live theater. However, if I could pay $25 or something and watch some shows on some sort of a broadcast, a live broadcast at home, I think I probably would. I really
well,
would.
But that's if it's live. Do they record it once and keep selling it, or do they do it every night?
No,
Chris,
they got to do it live. They have to do it live.
That's exactly where I was about to go with that.
Yeah, but it seems like they would go the NBC route and do one of the major Broadway shows on a television soundstage where they can set it up once, set it up for broadcast. Coming into theaters around Broadway is going to be a massive expense to bring in camera packages and everything else when the television industry is already doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think another interesting aspect that we were talking about, especially about getting butts in seats, is that, you know, whenever we're allowed to reassemble people in some place, you know, these $400 pit row seats and shit, nobody has the money for that. Nobody's going to be able to pay that, you know? And people like Live Nation and AEG and those guys and stuff, you know, should all just say, all right, $20, first come, first serve. Here's the first concert. Here are the rules and the stipulations of what we're going to have to do about it. But let's face it, people are going to be gun shy to get back together in groups of 20,000. It's just, you know, people are just going to be worried about it.
Jeff Ravitz just shared with us a link where you can pay, what is it, $6.99 for an online admission, but it's a rental, so it's a recording. You know, and to me, I think authenticity is still going to matter. You know, so I think if we're replacing a live show with a live show from home, it has to be a live show from home. It can't be, you know, because otherwise we can all go on YouTube and see, you know, U2 or whoever it is that we're trying to replicate. We can go see that.
I think you're right. I've looked at this kind of in the past because I was always like, okay, what's next? And I feel like you'll see especially now that the younger generation, this is kind of going to define them, you know, the young and uppers. I think you're going to see big boxes, medium boxes, small boxes, just like venues. They're going to do live shows. You're going to pay $19.99 on Xfinity or whatever. You're going to be able to pick your camera views. You'll be able to have access to exclusive tickets where the band themselves will have screens in front of them, be able to interact with their crowd, and that's going to get their bigger ticket revenues.
VIP pre-show.
Correct, where they're chatting back and forth.
Be in a bubble.
You got to add value. I mean, you have to. If you're going to try to replicate or replace the live experience, you have to add value and you have to make it worthwhile and all of those things. So, you know, the multi-camera thing was a brilliant suggestion because, you know, imagine if you could watch whoever your favorite band is from front of house, from, you know, row 176, from the side of the stage, from backstage, be able to ask the band questions, be able to ask the LD questions. I mean, these are things where we can add value and get those ticket prices at least reasonable, right? I don't know.
And Marcel, as you just touched on, years and years ago when I worked for Nails, one of the coolest things about the DVDs that Trent always put together was, you know, it was 5 cameras and you could pick which one you wanted to watch for the show.
Yeah.
You know, so as lighting and production people, I could park at the front of house camera and catch all that shit out. But if you're, you know, a fan of the guitar player, at least you could go pick that camera for that shot. You know what I mean? And I think one of the unique things that you just said is that we have to be able to provide something in a live show situation that differentiates us and makes people want to come to it. Because if we're not selling anything they want to see, you know, just to see the concert, cool, you know, fans and cult people are going to do that. But unless we provide something to make it a unique experience, I think we're gonna be struggling.
Yeah, I mean, we've got customers right now that. Yeah, we got customers right now that are wanting to talk about doing smaller venues, less people, but multiple days. Brian, by the way, hi. I haven't seen you in a while since our last event, but you know, they're looking at the possibility of, you know, renting out, you know, Staples Center or the Microsoft Theater or whatever it's called these days, but and putting 1,000 people in there, spreading them out, and then doing it over 3 or 4 days. And I mean, so our customers that we've been talking to are now starting to try and figure out what can they do safely and what will the insurance companies go, yeah, this will prove. I still think we have the same issue we're going to have, which is the exiting and entering. But, you know, if they do it as a social distance and they do it in a planned way where it's more spread out, I think that might be a possibility.
Yeah, but again,
not necessarily
crazy
for the concert.
idea, Patrick. But do we have to have people in a live event? Do we have to have physically people sitting in seats in a crowd in a live event? Or can we make it so different and such a cool experience where we're actually making it a better experience than what, I mean,
I completely agree, but
one sec. You got to look at the fact that 10 years ago, taxis didn't see Uber coming. You know what I mean? 20 years ago, Blockbuster didn't see Netflix coming. And all of these massive changes happen. And if you're not prepared for it, they just go boom and they run right over you. And so I think we have an opportunity to reinvent some of the things that we do today.
100%.
Or we're going to get run over like Blockbuster did and like taxi companies have.
But I agree with their concern is that they want to make sure that there's some interaction and that there's sort of, you know, one of the studios that we've been talking to, their concern is that they want people to feel like that things are slowly turning back to normal. I mean, if we all are quarantined into our houses for the next 3 years and we're watching, you know, concerts online and we're watching all of our favorite shows and interacting virtually, you know, there is that personal level. And so, yes, I agree that things are going to be different. 100% agree with that. But I also agree with the fact that people want to go to a trade show or want to go to an event or want to go to something where they can physically lay their hands on, buy the ungodly expensive t-shirts and eat the shitty food. I mean, that's never going to go away.
How cool can we make the side of that? If they can't today,
right?
How cool can we make the experience so that people go, yeah, you know what? Like I didn't get to sit with 20,000 sweaty people, but this was kind of cool. You know, I mean, we've got to do stuff like that or else, you know, we cease to exist as an industry.
I think the hardest part that's going to be difficult to replicate is going to be the energy of being in a crowd. How do you get that interaction from the other people that are there virtually? That's the toughest part. You can go stick a camera in the middle of the crowd and it'd be great to watch it virtually and feel the energy of the crowd that's there. But if there's no crowd there, how do you do that? So what can we replace that energy?
That's part
with?
of it, but what about the bands themselves? Like the band, like any musicians in the house who have played, you know, a packed house, you feed off the crowd, and when there's no crowd there, like the performances are gonna
figure it out.
Become canned.
Yeah.
Think about
figure it out. I mean,
how many of us have done a label industry showcase with our artists?
With 12 people.
You can hear fucking pins drop in between songs, or they're talking about what they're going to do for the weekend, you know, up in Santa Barbara. I mean, that's the same shit that's going to happen for us.
Well, I mean, they want a paycheck as bad as we do.
Right? Yeah, but you can't put a comedian in an empty room. It never works.
Right.
Good call, Chris. Good call.
In 2013, my wife swears that Justin Timberlake looked her directly in the eyes during the show. You can't replace that. And I don't necessarily know that happened. I'm sure he was looking at a million people there. But I think all of this virtual stuff could be a nice transition back into normalcy. But at the end of the day, I keep thinking about the fact that as a world and as a country, we are able to overcome a lot of things. Think about everything that's ever happened. You've always been able to overcome it. So, in some way, something will happen eventually. You know, that will allow us to have promising therapeutics that make the virus less scary, or maybe a fast-track vaccine, or maybe, you know, what Sweden is doing is working, and we don't need to do such incredible aggressive social distancing, and we'll find a balance at some point.
But we need to find out, and from people who are, you know, gear suppliers and stuff, and designers of equipment and shit. And, you know, initially, if we're only rolling things out by video and by that kind of stuff, then it's going to be, you know, great. I need 30 lights. I don't need 8 trucks of lights. You know what I mean? And that's, unfortunately, it seems like, as Marcel said, going to be one of the new dynamics at this particular point is that, great, we're going to do this virtually, we're going to do a Zoom thing with multiple cameras, or one of, you know, 50 ways to skin the cat. Until we can put more than 1,000 people in a room, I mean, we could do Grand Olympic or any of the arenas and do social distancing and do all that. But who's going to want to pay to let a goddamn arena when you're only putting 2,000 people in the Staples Center?
And how do you get those people that are going to sit, 100 feet away from the stage when there's 1,200 other seats to sit in closer?
Exactly.
Unless live concert touring is now for the elite, for the temporary, and you sell 2,000, seats, and it's like, the Theater of the Clouds at the Moda Center type thing, half filled, and you're selling, 500, 600 seats for $4,000 a piece to the very elite.
Okay, but Jason, let me ask you something. And again, we keep going back to how do you get people in seats?
Back to live, yeah.
So let's say, God himself comes down and says, folks, for the next 12 months, we cannot put people in live events, period. You cannot have mass gatherings. You can't have people in a concert. 12 months. Goodbye. That's it. That's all I can say. So then what are you going to do?
Honestly, as many people said, it's the same thing. Like you put everybody you put the artist in a club and film it there and maybe put 50 people in. But I mean, as you said, if God himself comes down, how are we going to get around it? I mean,
but maybe that's what we're faced with. And maybe we have to come up with some really creative ideas to make it a much more exciting thing.
I agree.
So that people will pay for tickets to watch it on their couch.
Well, what's the reason?
The other thing is that
somebody was just trying to talk.
Look at what we're doing right here now with the Zoom meeting that nobody was using to this extent previously. And is there a future in Zoom concerts? Is that going to be a thing? Are we going to be able to virtually put people in a room on a screen and join us together? And is something virtually going to develop?
Yeah, they're doing that already. They're doing that already. People are doing Zoom concerts with every musician in a different house.
Let me ask you this. Any of you fuckers like this?
No.
Not a fucking chance. Not a fucking chance.
No.
Send me back to a goddamn gig right now.
I mean, it's nice to meet you people, it's nice, I guess.
We don't know what normal is going to be as we head into the future.
I mean,
there may not be humans at shows for the next couple of years. Who knows? You're talking about doing all these different camera angles and all that. NASCAR is already doing that, where you can select your driver and you can select the cameras and you get the in-car shot and you can do all that stuff. I mean, there's people that have already done this that are farther down the road than the entertainment business is.
Oh, the film industry is doing that right now.
What's that?
The film industry is doing that right now, where you can pick your own ending and you sit in the movie theater with your iPhone and you go through and you collectively as a group pick your cameras, your endings. So
yeah, but am I the only antisocial person who
yes
would prefer to watch a brand new movie
I agree with
versus at a movie theater? And by the way, Mark, you just mentioned NASCAR. I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I love Formula One. And Formula One got me to pay for their stupid service because they did a multi-camera thing and they showed me what was going on in each car, like what their RPMs were, what speed they were going. And I'm a race junkie. And so I don't know if Sooner's on this call, but she could back me up on this one because I'm sure she bought it too. But I don't know if any of you guys know.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Race junkie.
It was terrible.
The F1 thing?
Terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. Same with the NASCAR one. It was terrible. It was terrible.
The Formula One wasn't that bad.
Same with the IRL one. They were terrible.
Yeah, hang on. I'm muting Chris. Okay, so Chris is
I'll
muted.
mute myself.
Yeah.
That was one of the it's bad for now until technology until technology, like everybody has a VR headset and they can actually look around from a perspective rather than being stuck on a locked off camera tripod.
Yeah.
Has anybody started
right, Christian,
yelling at the Fogger and Haze manufacturers to figure out how to freaking sanitize through haze so we can just say, no, we need more smoke?
Those machines are out there already. I've seen them. I've actually seen them.
Yes.
There's fog machines that have, and again,
hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, this is another thing that our industry is doing that is so awesome to see, but it's not sustainable. Like we talked last week, somebody mentioned Froggies, and I got a couple gallons of their and I realize how little I actually use of this hand sanitizer. A gallon's going to last me about 16 years. Like I'm going to go start donating it down the street and stuff. But there
Give
are
it to the hospital.
Yeah, there are smoke machines already that are doing it. And the other thing is there are lighting manufacturers, some of whom may be on this call, who are already doing UVC products. And so UVC is, we can take regular lighting fixtures and put UVC chipsets in them, and people can't be in the room, but you can sanitize a room and get rid of this virus overnight, for example, especially
that's huge.
Gyms, restaurants, any place where there's lots of people.
Well, yeah, but that sanitizes the room, not the people coming to it.
No, the people coming to it are still, gonna shake each other's hands and hug and get sick.
But if we get testing down where people can actually show that they've been
barcodes, we're all gonna get barcodes on our wrists.
And a nice, convenient,
along with your
barcode tattoo
card that you can open up your car and you can do.
Eric is here.
Yeah, I was going to say, guys, the problem, and yeah, we've looked at that stuff. The problem is the liability, the testing it takes. You don't know how long people need to be exposed to UVC. You don't know how long the fog needs to be in the room to work.
Actually, UVC is a pretty tried and tested technology. So UVC fixtures exist on loading docks for food service places, in certain restaurants. Old-fashioned UVC stuff has been out there for a number of years already to sort of, whatever bug places at night or whatever. And, but this would just be advanced UVC with new advanced controls so that as soon as somebody walks into a room, the UVC fixtures turn off, or, all kinds of other things. Like, I've been talking to a chain of gyms, a very large chain of gyms about this. And, they're talking about having rooms with machines in them where cleaning fixtures turn on in between uses of these machines, because gyms might be one of those businesses that doesn't come back until there's new regulations put in place that protect their patrons.
Well, and even the new Boeing 787s have the UV black light that comes on in the bathrooms when you're not in it.
Right.
People are trying that, but in our industry, we don't have the resources or the let's say the pedigree to go down that road. It's got to be somebody at a different level, and.
Well, we do. I mean, you do through a claim. You definitely do through a claim.
This already exists, actually. And I made a phone call the other day to the local hospital here in Richmond, Virginia, and they're actually already using the UVC lights to clean their face shield masks in the hospital in locked up closet rooms. So the fixtures definitely exist. The timing exists on them. When people enter the room, they shut off. All of that technology exists. So feel free to reach out to me, guys, if you have any questions about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to become a much larger industry, because I don't think there's very many businesses that have people in them during the day that are not going to be in some way asked to clean those places at night, whether it's using, spray stuff or fog machines or lights or whatever it is. So
as you would imagine, the current availability of those chipsets is very slim.
Eric, and too, you mentioned the 787, and that's amazing. Flew on a 787 to Vegas this year for LDI, and it was an incredible aircraft, right? But the vast majority of the time, I'm stuck on a 737, 500 and up, and I'm scraping my hands in the sink, which is like smaller than half the size of a tiny, dessert bowl for a peach cobbler. I'm scraping my hands against the sides and having to touch the door, and I think it's interesting that it kind of speaks exactly what you said to, as a society, the things we need to think about. We need to think about bathroom doors opening inward in venues. We need to think about step-in pulls on every single door. We need to think about touchless everything. One of the things that blew me away about the 787 was the fact that it was completely touchless once you were in the bathroom. The sink was infrared, the hand the soap was infrared, etc. So, we need to find ways in our industry to be helpful in that way. People don't think 7 steps ahead, in terms of like, well, I touched that, and I touched that, and I touched my phone, and then I washed my hands, and I touched my phone, then I ate. Now I have the disease. So that's an interesting thing, we need, as a society, but in our industry, How can we not coil theater that's been all over the floor? We can't.
By the way, I have to do my weekly, what do you call it? Props to Patrick Dearson on his, your, whatever it was called, Apocalypse, Vegas Apocalypse #4 video was absolutely hilarious. Hey, come on, keep up. I mean, I was dying laughing.
Oh, well, my co-host on that, Justin Chatham, is joining us today.
Where is he?
He's
Justin, speak so I can see your little window light up.
Himself. He looks a little crazy because he's having a bad hair day.
Every day's
who
a
isn't?
bad hair day for me, apparently.
Yeah. Well, you guys are doing a great job with that video series. It's hilarious. I think, anyways. If people haven't checked it out, go to Dearson's Facebook and check it out.
Hey, Marcel, this is Greg Jones. How are you, bud?
Hi, Greg Jones.
Just to go backwards in the conversation.
Greg Jones, you work for Harman. You have the worst sound on this call. What the hell is going on?
I don't know. It's called a loaner laptop.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway, I think back to Jesus Christ Superstar, which is a pretty substantial theater show that was broadcast. And aside from liking the broadcast, I'm curious. I'd love to know if there's anybody on the call that has details about that. And what was the reason they did that? Was it to promote more butts in the seats, or was there some broadcast financial gain from it? I think that it's viable. I'm just probably one of many, but is there anybody on this call from the theater side, New York side, that has any data on?
Well, I heard a couple things. I heard that was a 2018 recording, the one that we saw on television, and
2019.
19?
2019.
It
was a film last year for each.
Yeah. And then the second thing I heard is at the same time it was broadcast, Andrew Lloyd Webber was tweeting out the 2012 broadcast of it because it was a much better version or something. I don't know, controversy maybe. But I thought it was great. I agree with you.
I'm just wondering if, taking a look back at the reasons why they did that, right? Let's just say that financially it was 10 points less than if they hadn't have done it. But right now, any points is better than no points.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I guess not too many people on the call are intimately familiar with that, with that production, but it'd be interesting if anybody could find out and share with the group.
Stand by 1 second.
Go get him, Jason.
Oh, he's going to ask his wife. Honey.
My whole fear with this going digital is simply that one gig is not going to pay myself.
I don't know who that is, but you don't have very good internet.
Vendors
Who is that?
That's the problem with digital technology.
We're really going to bone ourselves.
Oh, I know. Is it Matt? Was that Matt?
Yeah, that was Matt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Matt, you got to pedal faster to get that dial-up internet working, buddy.
Are we being
digitals that we won't be able to understand people when the call drops out?
Yeah.
Hey, Marcel, back to your original question.
Griff, I understand the voice.
If business and event planning means hoping for the best and planning for the worst, I'm curious what production and manufacturing people are actually doing on both sides of that, rather than just waiting to see what happens. Because that's kind of what the topic you started on, and I don't really hear anybody addressing like what really happens if we're out a year or 18 months until 80% of people get infected or we have a vaccine. What are people's plans?
Well, I mean, I've got a shed tour that's got 2 sets of dates. It's a Live Nation show, and they're looking at an end of June and an end of July, and they're figuring out their window. But in the meantime, we're still moving as if we're starting. We're making video content. Scenic's doing the best they can to build. We're rolling, and we'll hit a break point. But for now, we're pretending we're going at one of those 2 markers.
That's amazing. And so, again, I mean, one of the things I said earlier is it's easier to say no right now. And part of that is because of the logistics that are backing up. And so I think what happens is the promoter, the production company, the artist, whoever it is, everybody's looking at this and going, there's too many unknowns, cancel. Let's just, look at it again later, because they were looking at making X, but they could lose Y. And so it's, loss mitigation is really what it comes down to, as opposed to, we're certain that we can't run a show in August or September or July or whatever. So, I'm not certain that I can't, I haven't canceled my flights in June. I've got a couple flights, including one up to Canada, my house in Canada in June. And I haven't canceled that because I think I'm going to be going. So,
Marcel, I think that's going to be up to the airline, because there's going to be occupancy caps in venues, airlines, any public transportation. So they're going to cancel you. It's not you necessarily canceling on them.
Yeah.
They're going to cancel to get to the right number.
Yeah.
That's what I believe is going to happen.
I think in perspective that if the 18-month thing is anything close to being reality, that how people make money in the world economy and how people spend money is anybody's guess at this point. So I think we have to plan for the reality that we have in front of us and what's most apparent, because if that truly happens, then in the next 6 to 12 months, none of us are going to know what's actually going to amount to life as we know it and how anybody makes any money anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying earlier before my crappy internet was simply that us going this route of digital is not going to help anyone in the long run in our industry, because one show on demand, it might get people to be like, oh, concerts are happening again. But one show is not going to pay the bills. One show is, a full lighting rental package for one show or a full design fee for one show is just not, it's not going to pay our bills. Like as a freelance lighting designer, it's scary. It's the same thing with Jason, the same thing with, all my fellow brethren on this thing.
I think Jason Bullock has some answers for us here.
Marcel, actually, I do. So my wife who works with IA 798 and is on the board of trustees, I know there's some questions about the Broadway stuff, so I'm just going to throw her on for a second. Rob Gibson and a bunch of other people here know her, but
cool, very cool.
Broadway questions.
What is said wife's name?
Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Do you have blue hair as well?
Oh God, no. So stupid.
Jen, best sweatshirt ever.
So can we talk shit about Jason now that he's not on anymore and you've got his headset?
Fuck yeah.
What's up, Jen?
Where's my BFF Gibson? I thought I saw him in a little square.
He's here somewhere.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Penny? All right, so you guys had Broadway questions. Why aren't you in gallery view so you can see everyone at the same time?
There's just too many.
Oh, there's too many of you. I've often
there's
said
a
there are
few
too many
pages.
lighting people. You had Broadway questions? What's?
She's already rearranging his technology. It goes right out the window.
Yeah.
You can tell who's in charge over there.
Mm-hmm.
The questions were about the televised broadcast version of Jesus Christ Superstar, I think is what.
Yeah. What about it?
So what was the original question? I think that it was like, what was the onus of doing that from a broadcast perspective? Was it a financial push? Was it a marketing push? What was it exactly that they were really gain at the end of it?
If you guys actually Google Broadway shows doing live presentations, we've been doing it for a couple years now. I think the first one that the networks did was Sound of Music. And then every year they've been doing one since. I forget the order because it was this in New York, and then they tried one in LA, and we were like, ooh. They did Rent in LA, and unfortunately one of the actors broke something at dress rehearsal, so the live performance was actually the tape recorded dress rehearsal. But it's been a way for the Broadway community to reach a bigger audience, obviously to benefit, like, oh, maybe I will go to New York and I'll go see a show. And like every production that they've done annually has got some names in it, and then to draw people to actually stop and watch it, and then other people. But
do you know if there's been any tangible results from that, or it's too tough to tell?
It didn't work on Marcel, so yeah, it's like.
I mean, there has been. I mean, like, do you mean tangible in like box office sales, or like tangible as in like? I mean, it definitely left a platform for Broadway HD, which you can subscribe to if you're really that much of a Broadway fanatic. And you know, I think why they aired it again was, one, it was really obviously for the cast and the way that it was filmed was a really well received performance, and so, you know, obviously Broadway's trying to make people not forget about us.
So can you see the Broadway HD format being done and actors doing Broadway plays in empty rooms and only selling them digitally?
Do you mean, can I see that happening?
Yeah.
I don't put anything past the Broadway producers. So, I mean, if there's a way to keep the craft alive and money flowing into the community, then yeah. I mean, we're all in a, you know, obviously new territory of how we could come back. You know, do you sell every fourth seat? You know, like that's probably something that's under discussion. You know, how do you sterilize the prop that gets used by 6 people, or do you need now 6 props? So, you know, but I mean, the HD world, or possibly doing shows with no audience but telecasting them. I mean, I'm sure that the powers that be are having that conversation.
Times being different now than what they were, do you have any insight as to what the viewership is of that stuff, and if it had any result on box office sales as well? But primarily, what's the viewer following on the recorded stuff?
I mean, I don't obviously have any statistics right in front of me because I just got pulled into Jason's lighting office. I'm not in my union office. But yeah, yes, I know that there's profit from it, and I know that it's worth their while, so they wouldn't keep doing it.
Those shows are incredibly complex and labor intensive.
Yeah.
You take, you know, 6 months to perhaps, you know, longer to plan out, and that's not a reason not to do it. I think some of them had audiences and some of them didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as valid a format as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, well, to put it this way, when they do those live performances, they treat it like a Broadway show. So the pre-production, like, you know, producers, directors, and, you know, all the guys that do the prep work before the cast comes in, you know, that's still pretty standard for how we timeline our own live shows. And the rehearsal process, depending on who's in the cast, like if you got, you know, a bunch of cast members that were in the production on Broadway, then you might cut their rehearsal time because they're recreating something, so they don't need it as much. You know, then obviously if you've got John Legend coming in who's never done something in that kind of fashion, maybe they privately rehearse him somewhere else and bring him in for the rehearsal process that we normally have. But the rehearsal process for us, like, and don't forget, guys, I do hair and makeup normally. So like we come in with the actors. So, you know, aside from the tech stuff, which I, you know, have it on my call sheets of how long that is, you know, I come in when the actors are getting in. So we're probably on stage or in rehearsals for 2 to 3 weeks, and then, you know, like a month of rehearsals. So say there's like a 6-week rehearsal process, and then they would do the big telecast, live cast.
I had friends who were actually in the JCS thing, and they were in rehearsal for 2 months, and it ended up being filmed in a warehouse in Queens, I believe, or Brooklyn. And it was all, you know, I think there were Emmys awarded for that as well.
Yes, there were.
Through my friend who does Saturday Night Live. I think she was one of the production designers on that. So
cool.
Al Gurdon was the lighting designer. He won the Emmy for Jesus Christ Superstar for 2018 when it originally aired. This last Sunday was just a rebroadcast.
Right.
Yeah, it was a rebroadcast. Yeah, but yeah, I don't
to answer your question. The first time it aired, it got a 9.3 million viewership and a 1.7 demo. So it was incredibly successful for NBC.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The whole production flies in the face of social distancing in a major way for the actors and the crew, let alone whether there's an audience there or not. You know, you have to get those enormous crews and casts comfortable with the idea.
Yes. I mean, did any of you look at or read about the 18,000 students that sought to kill a mockingbird at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, it was right before this happened. It was right before this happened.
It was right before it. I worked it.
But how many of those kids came down with it?
Well, so far we don't have any actual statistics on that, but you know, because I don't have statistics on how many of the 18,000 students that attended, how many, you know, have called in sick or anything because they're all home. But even with that, like having done, so when we did a play, so let's not even call it not even a musical, just a play. And you did it at the Garden. I mean, there was a full, AC/DC crew there, like that big of a show, plus the theater crew, plus the TV people. So you actually have to enlarge the crew when you're doing something like this. To quite a bit, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
have
what
I
else
done my
we
part?
got? You
Can
have.
I walk away from lighting?
Thank you so much.
I mean, come on, Rob. You know I love lighting.
Thanks, Jen.
I have a question. Honestly, how many of us believe, and I know most of
Q&A.
medical, but how many of us truly believe that there may be a possibility that we don't see any shows in 2020?
Not me.
I mean,
I
the
think
sad
it's
truth.
getting more obvious that this might be the outcome. Because we've discovered this week that total authority will not fly from the federal government.
Right.
It appears that the mayors and the governors are going to be calling the shots. So just today, Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles is making a wonderful statement on CNN. He just made it, and it was in the LA Times earlier today. And he said, I think we all never wanted science to work so quickly. He continued, but until there's either a vaccine, some sort of pharmaceutical intervention, or what's called herd immunity, and that has to do with the multiple waves that we talked about last week. The science is the science, and public health officials have made it very clear we have miles and miles to walk before we can get back into those environments.
But Benoit, you want to change that statement? Shut down government.
Well, there you go.
Okay, so let's shut down government. Let's say, okay, guys, guess what? You're closed, social distancing, you can't go to work or collect a paycheck until this is all over. The answers are all gonna change. The people getting paid are making all of these really stupid decisions and statements right now. And at the end of the day, life has to go on. We got to find a way to.
But it's to protect the health system.
Yeah, but guess what? I don't know. I don't want to get political, but we can't stay shut down for 18 months.
It's up to us within the industry to figure out how we change this. The federal government or no government's going to figure
100%.
it out for us. We have to figure out what we can do to bring to the table to make this possible, whether it's an instigator, a catalyst, or a solution, but something has to come from our end of the spectrum, not from anybody else.
It's going to be lobbying, like we saw what WWE in Florida. Why is that essential? Why is Disneyland, Disney World not essential on that same comparison? Why are restaurants not essential by that comparison? It's just who's going to lobby to force their hand.
The WE, there's a lot of different factors involved in that thing going on there.
I think the question people are asking is when are economic impact of rather severe quarantining going to start moving people to behave differently than they're willing to do now?
Well, on the second round of $2 trillion, I mean, at some point the government's going to realize they can't keep printing money and throwing out like right now. This is a tens of trillions of dollars problem. Mokri wants to speak. We all need to be silent. Shh.
Well, it was a good day today. My PPP loan came through, so we'll be able to stay alive and eat for a few more months. I'm going to play my first. Okay, and this is a very small example, but I'm going to play my first COVID gig, not this Friday, but next Friday, which is going to involve setting up in front of an apartment building for it basically, and playing on the bed of our truck, and people come out on their balconies and listen. So it just occurs to me
really
that
cool.
You could do that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
At a Vegas casino with people on their balconies if the place had balconies. So it's, I go back and forth. We've been talking about governmental policies. What's going to decide is the audience. When the audience feels safe, they're going to turn up. I read a Nielsen poll the other day of sports fans who said 75% will not show up at a live event until there's a vaccine. So we can kick and bitch and moan till we're blue in the face, but until there's widespread testing, widespread solutions that make people feel safe in a variety of environments, not just the one we're in, is when I think we're really.
You know what's funny about that, Robert?
Around,
So,
you know.
We had a talk 2 or 3 weeks ago, and those of you who were on it will remember this, where everybody was saying, yeah, you know, there's no way you can go and do a show, and there's no safe way to do this, and so I said, hang on a second, guys. If I'm, I don't remember what example I used, but I think I was Beyonce or something. If I'm Beyonce, no, I think I was Justin Bieber. And I said, I'm going out on tour today. Who wants to come with me? And basically everybody raised their hand. So
same with the live events.
These 75% of people who say they won't go to a live event, I call bullshit, because I don't know that many people. Like if I pull all of my friends, you're talking 3 out of 4 are not going to go to that live event. Really? I don't believe that.
When this is all done, they're going to be chomping at the bit to get the hell out of their fucking house.
And when this is all done, or in June, you know,
they're chomping at the bit now.
I don't disagree with you at all, you know, but I think they're chomping at the bit, but they got to feel safe. You know?
Yeah, I think until there's, I agree with Robert. Until there's really a vaccine or something, we're not going to see.
Well, and as someone said earlier in this conversation, it's the liability. I mean, nobody, like Live Nation, none of those guys are going to want to bring in 10,000 people and then have, oh yeah, we had 200 infections because one person in there was asymptomatic and spread it to the people that were staying in the pit.
That's a real problem, but I still believe there's going to be some sort of an indemnification thing that happens on that. And then
on your ticket.
Yeah, but the ticket doesn't help you. That little thing that you're signing off on your ticket doesn't help you. The other thing is, I believe that I've been told anyways, and by Live Nation directly, that insurance companies are actually okay with this right now. Like insurance companies are ready to write policies. And so I don't think they're the ones holding it up. As much as we like to talk about liability as the biggest issue.
There's no way, the insurance companies are fine with it because there's no way you could possibly track back to where you got sick 3 weeks ago.
I mean, it's just like food poisoning with salmonella and everything else, right? So
unless there's an outbreak, you know, everybody at the festival got sick. But Ryan Stump just texted, literally just now texted this to me. It's on the headline of CNN, like the main page. It says, LA mayor says this is likely the new normal. Mayor Garcetti says until there's a vaccine or pharmaceutical intervention or herd immunity, concerts and sporting events will be very difficult to see.
Yeah, Benoit said the same thing. Benoit said that 10 minutes ago.
That's great.
I just posted it on the chat too.
Again, it's so much easier to say no than yes right now.
There you go. Huh.
It's so much easier to say no than yes.
What do you think about as people go through the metal detector, they take their temperature at the same time?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's just like landing in Asia, going to airports.
The other day they talked about reopening.
People have no symptoms and no fever at all. So, you know, that's what we're seeing.
So wear a fucking mask and you're okay, right? I mean,
no, I have a job site right now that we're supposed to be on that they're supposedly doing temperature checks every morning on every person who comes in, and they get stickers that show that they're okay to come in. And we got shut down for an entire week right now because they had 2 confirmed cases that happened on, you know, they were on the job site on Friday, but they didn't have any symptoms.
Yeah, it's the same thing for us with all the job sites that we have running with general contractors doing all these installs for these venues. It's the same thing. We've got daily check-ins in the morning. Everybody has to be in masks per OSHA. You know, we're being put through our paces. It adds probably an hour to everybody's time card. So profitability, of course, is going down. But at the end of the day, it's what we have to do to keep things moving. Now, the House of Worship market that nobody I heard talk about yet, I mean, their intent is to ride the tails of businesses, non-essential businesses opening up and using the Constitution to basically blow their venues back open. So, you know, when that starts to happen, I think it will loosen things up for the live production side.
It's very true.
I think the house of worship thing is going to be one of the first ones to come back. That's what we're seeing. That's the only people we're getting calls from at this point are house of worship customers.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know I talked to Wiseman a couple days ago.
Be the way to do it. I mean, it's a First Amendment issue, and people are going to get frustrated, and they're going to buck that. This stay-at-home quarantine business.
Well, and the churches are only getting 20 to 30% of their funds through donations right now. So they're all hurting, and so anything they can do to blow the doors back open, they're going to do it. And the way that they're all talking is riding the wave of non-essential businesses, even if it's partial openings, and using that to just cram the door back open.
Well, again, how about Congress doesn't get paid till we get paid? How about government? These federal workers at the top of the food chain don't get paid till we get paid. I mean, you can't.
I am there with that.
You can't put us on one side of the fence and these other people on the other side of the fence or whatever. I mean, the bottom line is. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to say that, but the thing is, people who are making decisions right now, and these mayors who are making these, again, I don't want to get political, but this Detroit mayor who said that essential businesses who are allowed to be open cannot sell non-essential products, and she even listed. The Michigan governor, sorry, not the Detroit mayor, the Michigan governor, she listed you can't sell paint, you can't sell, all these home improvement things. I mean, why shouldn't we be able to fix up our houses right now when we have nothing else to do, right? If people have nothing better to do, why shouldn't they be able to paint their bathroom or to remodel their bedroom or whatever?
Home Depot is busier every weekday than it has been on a weekend.
But it's just completely ridiculous that some of these government people, these either federal or state people, leaders, are just being so completely reckless and ridiculous. Take their paycheck away for a little while. Tell them they can't go stand on a podium and make these nonsensical statements, and you've lost all power. You're like us. You're unemployed. How's that?
To some degree, we're sort of willing at some point to give up these civil liberties. These things. It's amazing. It's kind of amazing if you think about it, how overnight we have been so willing to kind of like play ball and give up on things, and we understand why we're doing it to a certain degree. But you will have overstepping like that. Like, I want to paint my bathroom right now. I can't do that. That doesn't make sense. So but we need to be a little bit more jaundiced in our approach, I think, of how willing we are to give up our social liberties here.
Well, and I mean, we got to fight back too. You have to fight back. And I'm not saying go, create a cache of weapons and ammunition in your house or anything, but, talk to your local politicians, talk to your state politicians, find ways to get the message out. And, I'm supporting all of these coalitions and these different people who are, at least getting a small voice, like the guy I had on my podcast last week from the Live Events Coalition. He's got a petition with 600,000 signatures on it. That's got some weight. That's got leverage. That's, a bit of a punch in the face for some of these government officials. You got to listen when somebody's got 600,000 signatures. By ourselves, not so much, but one of the things that I just wanted to go back to was Mokry said he got his PPP money. Now, how he got it before everybody else, I don't know. I mean, there could be some dodgy shit involved there because it is Robert Mokry.
He's very good with paperwork. He's very good with paperwork.
He's good with paperwork, and, he's got some dodgy shit going on too. He's Robert Mokry. But, that's a good thing. I mean, this PPP program, is it the end of the earth? Is it going to save us all? No, but it's a good thing. And, I don't remember if I mentioned to you guys last week, but one day I woke up and there was $10,000 in our account that was from this, whatever it was called, the SBA, here's some free money program.
Advance.
Yeah.
The IDL.
Yeah. So
I got my advance today.
Excellent. And I'm hearing more and more people getting these SBA loans. I heard a lot of people got their, whatever it was, $1,200 or whatever today. That's amazing. I mean, is it the end of the world? Is it going to save us? No. I was talking to Jason Roberski earlier, and he talked about some of the PPE things he's doing, and it's $5,000 here and $2,000 here and $1,000 here. It's not a lot of money, but it's something coming in, right? And that's what we got to do. We got to keep surviving, but we also have to stop expecting that this is going to go back to normal that we had 3 months ago, because it ain't. Everything's changed now. We're in a different world today.
Does anybody know if we've gotten legs on that letter and petition that was going around? Is that the same one that you were talking about, Marcel?
Yes.
Is it going anywhere?
Yeah, it is. So, he's kind of gaining steam every day, and I wish Ben Saltzman was still with us, because I think he actually spoke with him today. But he had no clue 2 months ago how to lobby government. He had no clue how to get through to a congressman or a senator or to the president. And so he's really learning as he goes along. And, so it's a bit of a slow process, but he's starting to pick up steam, and he's got more important people on board and stuff. That to me is something that's going to continue to have legs and to get somewhere. Is it going to be our savior? Probably not. But I think we're our savior. We have to keep doing the things that we're, that we're doing now. I mean, again,
we have to come up with a solution, but there's got to be visibility too. So I think that might be something that can give us the visibility that we need.
Yeah. Mokri, Rob Gibbs,
the question I had,
a question here about, did you use a large national bank or a small regional bank for your PPP?
We're with Chase Bank, and I have a small line of credit with them and a credit card. We've been with them 16 years since we've been open. So it wasn't without pain on the application. There was a lot of yanking around and so forth. I was on it like a stink on shit, man. I mean, I wasn't waiting for them to come to me. I was hawking the page, reloading it every few minutes, and got in, just as soon as we could. And then when the app went live, before my guy sent me an email, I was already on it, finishing it out. So
good for you.
I don't know.
Good for you. I
hope never have a choice. I had to do it. Okay. I mean, this isn't a choice for me.
I understand. It's not a choice for most of us. Yeah. No, but I hope a week from now, I hope next week, half the people on this call are saying, yeah, I got mine. I certainly hope I get mine, but, I hope all of you get it. I really do.
One other thing on that, I think, I'm not going to be able to spend it in the way that they're currently putting it out there and get forgiveness. And I'm gambling at the end that might not be such an issue. I think it's going to be very politically unpalatable to come after guys like us.
I agree with you 100%, Robert, and I'm glad you said that, because another article that's been being pushed around is one from St. Louis, and I think I got it from Aaron at PRG today. And I love Chip Self, but I completely disagree with Chip on this one, because Chip is turning down the money based on the fact that he's unsure of some of the rules. And one of the things that I learned as a business guy is you never turn down money. Period. You just
You can always give it back.
You can always give it back. What the fuck, Robert?
But
good words,
Marcel,
Robert.
Marcel, here's one of the things I want to say though. But for people like Rob and myself, Mr. Ravitz, who are all small level people, do you want another debt? Do you want to have another thing that has, even if it's 1% interest, do you want to pay that back?
Yes.
I don't.
If it's
the worst case on
death,
this, though, is that if you can't do it, then you turn around and pay it back with their own money and a little bit.
Exactly.
No, but the thing is, Jason, I'd rather have it and have to make those decisions later than not have it and have no ability to make a decision.
But see, I found I am exactly like on the borderline right now. Like right now, I can still pay my mortgage. I can still pay my bills. I can still put gas in the car.
Will you be able to 6 months from now, Jason?
8 months.
You got to take the money. You got to take the money.
For you, man. You're in a lot better shape than a lot of people I know, and that's
I
amazing.
feel like
Good
they're
for
going to
you.
be.
I'm not. I just make it work better.
Yeah.
I feel like there are going to be a lot of class action lawsuits against banks solely based upon them implying all these rules. Like Marcel, I just sent you my interaction with Bank of America, which was they literally said to me, they have no idea what the rules are because they told me I can't apply for a PPP because I don't have a business account. But I made it obvious to them that there's nowhere in the legislation or anywhere in any government rules that say that they have to limit it to a business account.
Well, they don't have to limit it, but they do have that option.
There's nothing in the rules that say they can't.
Yeah, they have my bank told me right up front that we're putting priority on people who have business accounts with us.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
I even went to small like smaller banks, credit unions.
Do you not have a corporate account with someone?
The best.
We're with B of A too, and we applied. I don't know, Kevin. Maybe about 2 weeks ago, I would say, and we haven't heard anything yet. About 2 weeks ago, Kev. Yeah.
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 Jason, I had the interview with a banker from Texas today, and she said that they're about a week behind, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
I just hope there's money left by the time they get to us.
There will be money.
Well, money runs out today. That's what everyone's saying.
One of the fucked up situations that many of us may have to deal with is that my corporation, my S Corp, is registered in San Francisco. I live in New York. So then where do you apply for the SBA? Which state?
Wherever you have your bank.
It doesn't matter through your bank.
Yeah,
no, the City National Bank disagrees with that. I spent 2 hours on the phone this morning. That they were like, "Are you out of the New York office or the LA office?"
If you're going just for PPP, I read an article this morning, and I saw a post in a local group in Austin of small business owners that somebody went to PayPal. They have a PayPal account. They got through the entire PPP process, got approved, and were guaranteed funds within 24 hours. They started yesterday morning, and they got their funds today.
No shit.
I call bullshit.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I kind of call bullshit too.
I call bullshit.
PayPal and started another application. So
yeah, I mean, there's no way.
That's got to be PayPal providing it contingently.
Well, that's exactly what I think it is. I think PayPal is fronting it, assuming that the government's going to back everything and be okay with it.
Well, and they have
like Cabbage is doing that too.
And they have liquidity to be able to spend. Right. Oh yeah, great. So if we spend $1 million now, what's $1 million to a company like Apple or Google or anything else?
They also don't have the restrictions that banks have of, having to keep certain ratios and things like that.
Exactly. They're corporation.
So, I've got a PPP application in with our banker who basically has said it's going to come through. He just doesn't know exactly when because they got like 10,000 applications in the first 4 hours of being open.
Right.
So I went to PayPal this morning and after I read that article and did another application.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
There are so many things that are yet to be revealed in all of this, yet to be revealed in how we'll get our PPP loans, how we'll be able to rehire employees back, how we will be able to, as a country, fight the virus. Are there going to be promising therapeutics, et cetera, down the line? That it's like, we are America. Like I go back to what I said before. We have always overcome everything. I mean, this is not like 9/11 or Y2K. This is kind of like Y2K without an end date. And I think that's the scariest part is that it's the inability to forecast.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can use common sense and protect yourself and your family,
right?
But get on with living.
Yeah.
Or you can
several-year process.
Or you can suck your thumb and be afraid forever.
Yeah, don't hide.
By the way, did everyone notice that Frank Montero's here? Wow.
Hey, Frank.
Look at him, and he's all like
mellow
and chill.
Hey, there he is. What's up, Pepe?
Somebody just sent him an order.
Okay, let's play a game now. The game is called "What the hell did Frank just say?" Come on, go.
Southern car, baby.
Smells like what?
Smells like money is what I heard.
I heard smells like
That's
car.
not what I heard. That's not
I don't
what
know
I heard.
what he said. Frank, what did you say?
Southern California.
There you go, buddy.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice to see you, Frank.
Likewise, brother.
Well, folks, this has been a lively discussion. And hi, Cosmo. Cosmo needs to go and take his sunset picture. So we have to end our call. That's it. We have to end our call because Cosmo has to go. I mean, you know, the fact is we actually have some people on here from Europe who are sitting up at 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, wherever they are.
Look at Steve Warren. There he is.
I know. Steve, how are you?
I've been quiet. That's it.
Yeah, why are you so quiet? How's it going over there right now?
I don't know. Everyone's training. I mean, I think there's a lot of people trying to stay positive, training, gearing themselves up for the future. You know, this whole sort of upskilling program, and it's commendable. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's scary shit.
It's shite.
Because I think it will be a grassroots growing it from. You know, there'll be smaller events growing, but there's also a lot of equipment in the market already. You know,
that's right.
Let's be real here. So.
Are you pissed off that they canceled Burning Man?
Oh man, Glastonbury's coming out, man. Well, it was coming out. What the hell?
Yeah.
I feel bad for our manufacturer friends because for us as production companies, touring companies, like there's probably not going to be a whole bunch of purchasing going on this year, you know. And I think across the board, you know, we've been quoting some things for the fall now, and it's like. Some of the requests we're getting aren't necessarily in line with the fact that we're coming out of COVID, you know, I mean, like lots of very specific niche-y things being requested. And I think we're going to see a change to that to a certain degree as we realize the gear shortage that we have, you know, and the fact that nobody's really buying anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really funny, Jason. I think that's the first time that I've ever heard anyone in a rental company say, I feel bad for the manufacturers. But, you know, the bottom line is all of us, like, I mean, the fact is I'm having calls every day with rental companies, LDs, manufacturers, sometimes all of them combined, sometimes a Republican on one side, a Democrat on the other. And we are all talking about the same things. We all have common interests. We all need to get through this. You know, that's the bottom line. I mean, everybody needs to get through this, and we can't, you know, suck our thumbs and die in the corner, and we got to keep just plugging. So,
you know what, though, Marcel, to just tap onto that idea for a minute, I think that this, in some regards, is for a chance for all of us to get a chance, to talk together, because we see each other at a festival, or we work on one tour together, like Rob and I did. Like, we're there for like 10 seconds. Being able to do this once a week at least allows us to have, and Mr. Koenig and everybody else that I know across the boards here, and even Mr. Ravitz from back in the 90s, is that I knew all of you guys, and like we, in some ways, can talk more about this, but when we come back, we're going to be screwed. I mean, right now is the time for manufacturers to say, great, I got to cut my workforce, I got to do everything else. Then you should be sitting in the back lab designing something freaking new. Now is a great time for R&D with a minimal crew, social distancing, all that crap. But now is the time, so when all of this comes back, and when all of us come back in hard hitting and going, holy shit, I have more gigs than I know what to do with. Great. Here's the 30 prototypes I built during this time period.
I think anybody should kid themselves that R&D is definitely still happening.
Yeah, but R&D is very hard to
still
do it
happening.
remotely. It is a challenge when you have to have hardware on different places and interact with each other, especially with prototyping. A prototype of a PCB is very expensive, and you can't have everybody in your team have the prototype. So it's
and I mean, Roel, you're a great example because you were launching a product at ProLight, and that show was canceled. And you're a brand new company with a brand new product that was launching at that show. So you've been very creative, and you've created a different way to do it, which is pretty exciting. And I mean, that's just where we're at right now. So again, like, I'm a cockroach. You can step on me 25 times. People know this, and you'll laugh that I'm calling myself a cockroach, but I am, because you can't, you know, I just don't die easily. And we can't die easily. Nobody here in this call, nobody in our industry, you can't die easily, because it's just too easy to say, oh, I'm screwed. And then what? I mean, then what? What are you going to do tomorrow?
Marcel, I think you're right. We're all, you know, we're an industry of fighters. We've been through a number of recessions. There's, you know, I'm old enough to remember the Gulf War, the financial crisis, each one of those. But I'll tell you something Corey said earlier about the cross rentals. And I think if there is a change I would expect, is that the most pressure will be on the manufacturers, because, you know, at times like this, all of the rental companies really pull together. You know, sat with them and listened to them all bitch about each other. But after these really hard times, the thing that really comes out of it is nobody wants to spend any money. They'd much rather rent it from somebody who they normally compete with.
Yep.
But if it keeps things going, that's fine. And I don't know about the other manufacturers. We have been sort of very prudent, very low borrowings. And so we're feeling quite safe. You know, we will be there. There's no question of that. It's just going to be a really hard 12 months at least. One of the things as well is the development. It's probably the only area of the company that's not significantly hit, because most of it is software. 90% of it is software, the development, and all the coders, they're all at home. It's just,
yeah, but it's still hard, Steve, because they're being paid from revenue driven by sales and product sales. And so, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, I understand everybody wants us to keep developing new product, but at the same time, like, that's like saying, hey, road guys, go out and tour and just travel around in a bus by yourself, but don't get paid and pay all the expenses still. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to pay all those expenses and not collect revenue.
It is. And you know what? I completely agree with Steve, though, is that at this exact lull that we have in our concert touring industry, even if you have to furlough half your staff, which is absolutely horrendous and horrible across the board, and have to figure out how to play those people and how to take care of your people. But if you can keep 5 people sitting in the warehouse that you're already paying for,
yeah,
you might as well make something new.
Robert,
you know
did you, Robert, had you laid off people?
Yes.
And have you brought them back yet, or are you planning to bring them back?
No, I don't think so. I think we're going to run on about half staff, and actually, one thing I didn't count on was we lost our first guy that we hired 16 years ago. He went out searching for a plan B and got offered a job immediately and went to work for Applied Materials.
Wow.
We're gone.
So you're
He
really
just decided,
going on a prayer that the government isn't going to want that money back.
pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think you're far off on that, by the way. I don't.
Okay, hang on. It's a SIG loan with no collateral, and we have sterilely good credit. So I think it's going to be very politically unpalatable to go after businesses that are trying to claw and scrape along.
At the same time, the IRS and the Fed hasn't ever had much of a heart, right? So
I think they're just going to turn this into a loan. They're just going to turn, if it's not used like they want, they're just going to turn the balance into a loan for you.
Oh, it is.
You'll have to repay.
It is a loan that's forgivable if you spend it in a certain way. I do anticipate that they're going to amend those rules.
I don't think you're wrong. The PPP rules don't make sense for a small company. Yes.
I think they're going to amend them to suit more people that are receiving them. I'm going to reach out to our government, my senators and so forth, and send them a message going, you need to change this and make it work for our business more. And it might work and it might not work, but me saying nothing will get nothing.
Well, Robert,
worst they're going to say is no. Worst they're going to say is no, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the way it went for me with dating. I mean, I got told no a lot.
Yeah, you got a few of them, huh?
Right? I mean, you just got to keep hammering at it till you get one, that's kind of weak and maybe had a couple too many drinks.
That's hilarious. On that note, let's go. I'll see you guys next week.
Marcel, good to see you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, wait. Craig's going to play us a song. Let's go, Craig. You got to turn your mic on, buddy.
Oh, she's
Bob, sing it.
Craig, doing it.
This is the guitar tech when you need them.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, see you guys. Bye, guys.
I got something I want everybody to do. I have something I literally want every single person to do.
What, Jason? What do you want us to do?
We try this. So put your hands out in front of you right like this, okay? Okay. Put your hands out. And then I want you to point your thumbs towards the ground, okay?
I've done this before.
And I want
We're all
you
going to
take
look like
your right
assholes.
hand and put it over your left hand and lock your fingers together and don't let go, okay? And then I want you to wiggle your left pinky. Marcel, that's the other one, right?
Christ.
And then I want you to do your right thumb
That's way too complicated, dude. Jesus Christ.
And then I want to do this.
I'm just leaving everybody with a happy image.
What the hell did he just do? Jason.
Over
Hey, Jason,
Yes.
do this. Do this. Jason, do this. Take both your hands and do this.
What is that?
Why do I?
Yeah.
Why do I need to? I have that. Why would I? Why would I do anything else?
Yeah. Oh my
you kidding?
God, we got a pig in the house.
Yes.
Yeah. It looks like the back lounge 9 Inch Nails bus 19.
It is.
See you
It
guys.
is.
Stop bacon when you run out of regular food.
Oh shit.
He was a piglet on a downward spiral tour.
It was.
Oh,
I
I saw 9 Inch Nails with you, front of house, and I was with Patrick Dearson, Black Fingernails and the whole deal.
Right.
I remember that show. You were a big fan.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
people do what people do, right?
All right, guys. It's been fun. I'll see you next week. All right.
We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Be well, Mr. Marcel Fairburn.
All right, folks.
Be
See you
good.
later.
Everybody else, great to see you. Be good.
Bye, all.